Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another Filming Stories. We have not done one of these in a while. I don't usually do them for the films anymore just because I feel like it's a bit self indulgent. Um, I may or may not do one for whatever, if anything is to occur in the future. Um, Maybe or maybe not. It depends on the parameters, specifically with the last Filming Stories where I talked about. Uh, the last short I did a few months ago, which was "Am I Dreaming," which was a little more out there in terms of presentation and stuff like that. Um, so I only do these videos, when there's like something really worthwhile to talk about, and this is one of them. This happened yesterday, and I just wanted to kind of talk about the experience a little bit and kind of give you guys my 2 cents, kind of coming out of, another festival like experience. I don't mean for this to sound so egotistical, but, I mean, you'll see how this story kind of unfolds too, because I also have realized a lot about just my own being in that space. And I'm just like, not really sure if this is specifically what I want, Um, but you'll understand what I'm saying once I get explaining to it. But yeah, as I'm kind of alluding to, I had another screening, another film, another short happened yesterday. Went down to LA for the Marina Del Rey Film Festival. They, their festival programmer, I believe his name's Peter Green, who I've actually worked with in the past for. I think it was another festival. It was the Silicon Beach Festival, I believe it was called. Um, that's where I had my first screening ever for this film I did a long time ago. It was a short called One. It was like damn near almost a feature film. It was like 50 minutes long and very expensive. Very expensive to get that film into that theater. But, at that it was being played at the TCL Chinese Theater, so, kind of having that opportunity there, it was like, okay, we should, my family helped out and helped out a lot actually. And, I have a video about that if you want to look through the Filming Stories playlist where I talked about that specific experience. Um, but, but yeah, I for the longest time I had stopped doing the festival stuff because I felt like on one part it was a lot of money, being put up, and basically you're just there just to collect accolades and just to create more appealing resume. But really, to me, it's like the ego is just a large part of it, and that's why I kind of just stopped doing it, because I prefer just to make the stuff and just have it be there. I don't really need attention per se for the shorts. I just make them just because I like doing it. Um, but this time I wanted to, because I've been in the state of mind where I've been trying to, you know kind of go for broke, like try things out. You only got so much time. I mean, turning, I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, but turning 25, it's kind of like put in perspective for me. That's like, you've only got so much time to do certain things, and you, don't waste more time. Just give it a chance and see if you want to do it or not, and see if it's something that it makes sense to you. So, so with that mindset, I decided to try the festival thing again. But, my objective, is not how it was before, because I was that egotistical, type of dude, was like acolytes and all that sort of crap and stuff like that. I wasn't looking for that. I was trying to not think like that, with my ego and stuff like that. Um, and my main focus was actually to go there and meet people, I want to talk to people. I want to, get to know their filmmakers or whatever, and just, get to talking about filmmaking and stuff like that. That's what I was wanting to do when I was going to this festival. So, so because I did the, things that you have to do, just submit, and, they reached out. Peter Green reached out to me, because this festival also was uh, being run by the same people who did the previous festival where I had my first screening. So spoke to Peter, and and told him, or he told me about wanting to film there, and we worked things out. And one thing that I will tell you, that I don't know if I really touched on it in my first video about screenings and stuff like that. Um, it is one thing to submit to the festival, but it is another thing to also pay. Let's say if they wanted to, screen your film, it's another thing to pay for, that for, I guess you could say, distribution. I don't know how that would work out, um, but basically it's called a digital DCP, and depending on how long your film is, you may pay $100, or you may pay as much as $400 to $500. And when I first had a short play at a festival, it was 53 minutes long. So you can figure, almost $400 that was spent on that, on top of the fee to also pay for the submission fee as well. So damn near $500 that was spent, just on that alone, right? So thankfully, with because the film I actually ended up submitting was Am I Dreaming? And the reason why I chose that film was because, on one level, if you're going to go for broke, go for the weirdest one, um, but also, I saw, also it had more, more reception, than a lot of the other shorts that I had done. So it just, go for the weirdest one, and go for the one that also seemed to have gotten the most traction, which again sounds so egotistical, but mainly though because, being that of what it is, it's just, it's a weird, I like ultimately what was made, but I will deny that it is the most out there, thing. But sorry, just got gas pulled up. Um, but yeah, I made all the arrangements. I made, what I had to do. I went to work. Requested a day off, and then, made the trip up to LA. It's about a 2-hour drive, so so it's a long drive, and I did this all by myself. So I did this all by myself, and I didn't tell my family uh, really what I was there for. I told them I was going to a film festival, and I was going to watch a film. Um, but I didn't really specify on what. So um, so I made the drive up there. It was actually a smooth drive. It wasn't as bad. A little, rough around the edges. Specifically when I got into the city, that's when it started getting more rough, because for anyone who wants to live in LA, I mean, that's cool and all, but not for me personally. I could not deal with all the cars, and everyone has their own objective, and the way the roads are also laid out, it's like it's not exactly uh, done with safety in mind in some cases. There's one traffic light I remember specifically where it had no arrows pointing left, but you can turn left, and it's a solid green light. There's another solid green light going on. So the cars here are going, and you are trying to get through here, and you have to wait until cars are not flying through. And it's just, basically making a blind estimate, and it's like, stuff like that, which I do not like. But just generally, also just lots of cars and people just getting mad, and this and that. Um, just the vibe there is kind of just at least in the area I was in. So um, eventually, I found parking, also Valley Parking, in a parking garage for 24 hours, because a lot of that area also they're not going to let you do 24 hours at most they'll let you do like 2 hours. Even some valet parking areas will let you only do 2 hours. Thankfully, there was a 24/7 parking garage that was right near the theater, and there were some spaces available. So thankfully, that was there. Um, but but uh, but yeah, eventually I got there, went and got my pass, and I came back. I got dressed up and everything like that, and um, when I got inside, the vibe just was not really there. I'm just being completely honest. I mean, the vibe was not really there. It was really, really empty. There was not a whole lot of people there. Now, just keep in mind, my screening was on a Wednesday, so obviously I should have had the right expectations, but I should have known that a lot of people were not probably going to be there. I'm not saying for my specific screening. I'm just saying, like, just generally, with people being there, it was like I should have probably expected, something. Should have expected something else, just because it's the middle of the week. People are probably at work, so you know. Um, but we eventually, got in, went into the auditorium that where my short was playing, and I was with, because with that festival they put you in like a circuit, of like shorts, so, or of other films. So I was with three other films, and uh, or was it three? No, it was actually four. Four other films. My bad. Um, and mostly, just the room was just me and a few other people. With basically the other people who worked on shorts and stuff like that. Um, there was a person here or there that kept coming back and forth. I think just because, and uh, eventually, when it came to my short, right, I was fully expecting this. I was expecting people to walk out just because, of what the material is. So, because I was also just morbidly curious to see what would happen, with people if they were to, you know, see that, and what kind of conversation can be made from that. Um, but, but I think I only had one person walk out, because I saw the disclaimer at the beginning, and then they just proceeded to walk out. Um, so I only had one. The last one that I had, the first screening I ever had, I believe I had like two. I believe I had two people that walked out. So, um, so, uh, so that's better, better than the last time. Um, but no disrespect to the other filmmakers. I think that they all brought in something interesting to their films. Here's the thing, and this is ultimately where I kind of found issues with my experience, and I started to realize I was like I'm not joking. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to sound a certain way. I don't want to sound ungrateful or spoiled or whatever like that. But the question that came to mind after all was all said and done was, did I really just waste my time? Because ultimately, what it felt like, it was just renting out a theater. That's what it just felt like to me. It didn't feel like a community of people, talking and stuff like that. Because the people that were there, I'm just being completely honest, like, they were not exactly people that seemed to care about making films as much as making statements, and creating infomercials, And I'm not trying to shit on the films. Some of them were actually very good. The last two that they played, I thought they were actually very good. I forgot what it was called. Libros Eris. It was a Spanish film, partially Spanish. That one I thought was pretty good. It was about air, and then also in relation to, bigger topics about pollution and, controlled interest, all that sort of stuff. I thought that was kind of neat. Um, I thought that my personal favorite of the bunch. Um, uh, And Forest Falls also. Before the Forest Falls, it was a documentary about a uh, uh, a a team of people who are trying to like uh, bring back life to a certain lagoon, uh, and that one was neat too. But those stories are, they're good, but they're good in packaging of a statement and in the relation to an infomercial. Talking about a specific point, but not. I think that the reason why I like the Libros Eris one, I believe. Uh, I'm white. Sorry, my Spanish is horrible. I am Hispanic, but it's I'm mostly white. Um, but I like that one the most because it had, it played with a lot of things. There was dance numbers. There was um, kind of bold risk in terms of letting certain shots play for a certain amount of time. Like there was a sense of artistry that I was getting from that. Still, at the end of the day, the I don't even think that filmmaker was there. Maybe they were. I didn't see them, um, but I did talk to one of the people. It was for the Forest Falls because that was the main people who took up the auditorium. They were mostly there. Um, Spoke to one of them, to congratulate them on their film, and ask them a little bit about how they shot their film because I thought, visually it looked really great. Um, they said that they'd shot it with Sony cameras and Red, specifically the Red cameras, which is why it looked as good as it did, I guess. But but when it was all said and done, on one level, I just feel as though the films that I was with, they just like they were all in relation to politics, specific points in commentary, and they they also were being fed back, right? There wasn't an extension that could be made to audiences, in the context or like really, in the context of talking and filmmaking. I just feel like there wasn't really much room to really have that conversation um, in those specific films that they were making, that I was with. They were there for their own purposes with their own objectives and to present a statement essentially. Whereas something like mine is just more like, here's a thought. Um, there was two other ones too, which were again not trying to say nothing. I'm all respect to people who make their shorts. My shorts are not great at all. I have my issues with mine as much as other people's. I mean, what I mean. Like I'm not perfect. Um, the other two that they had, there three, they were okay. I mean, they weren't terrible, but specifically the one that was called Tucked. It's about like a transgender prostitute or something like that. Nothing against the LGBTQ community or anything like that. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It's just I just feel like the way it was made, it was just kind of just didn't really translate as well for me, honestly. And the first one also, just the first short, was also a little iffy to me. But but um but yeah, I spoke to that one person about Forest Falls, and then that was really it. And then after that, I just went home, just took the drive home, and I just feel like when I came out of it, I just feel like ultimately I just rented space for a day, and that's really what it felt like. I didn't feel like I was really you know there to really talk to people. I didn't really feel like I got that experience. Partially maybe because I got nervous, just because obviously the whole thing, screening and stuff like that, it gets to me. It's nerve wracking, especially with what's being going to be shown on screen. It's like it gets me nervous. Um, uh, I saw one person reacting to my short, which was kind of neat. I saw their face. Like I just kind of looked over and saw this person over to my left, and his face was just like this, you know. So I'm not sure if he was interested or if he was baffled or just like what the hell is happening, you know? Um, but um, but I am still grateful for the opportunity. You know, I don't want to be that kind of guy. I'm not going to shit on, you know, I'm not here to talk shit. I'm just giving you guys my honest feelings about the whole experience. I went there to talk to people. I wanted to meet people and talk to people, and I just feel like I didn't really get that experience. And a lot of it is probably also my, shortcomings. Just because I was being very shy and very timid. I did talk to somebody. I did try to branch out. It was just also within the context of what those films are. I feel like they're more infomercial than quite literally a commercial for that documentary. It was in some ways a commercial for their whole brand, for their company. Nothing wrong with that, but just calling it as it is, at least to me. Um, so, and also being a Wednesday, again, there wasn't going to be a lot of attendance, regardless, screening, because there was multiple screenings happening, but it was just like, you know, I will also admit, this was the ego part of me thinking that, but I thought there would be like a Q&A or something like that, for the filmmakers to go up and talk and maybe, interact or whatever like that. Didn't get that. It was more just in rotation, like the film's just kind of just played on the screen and you show up at this time and it's going to play and then you just move along. You know what I'm saying? So, um, but I will say that I'll show you this. I actually snapped a photo from uh, from the theater because they actually had some posters there, which I thought was kind of cool. There was this Bardo poster there, and it was actually, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it was actually signed by Inarritu, by the director Alejandro Inarritu. I thought that was kind of cool. I think this movie is not particularly good, but I thought it was neat to actually see that poster and actually seeing that it was actually signed by him. So it was at the Lumiere Cinema. So I don't know. Supposedly it's an really old theater, but it was a nice little theater though. It was like very small, very little intimate theater. Um, like it had that very indie feel to it, which I really really love. If I was around the area, like if I had actually lived in that area, God forbid, I would not live in LA. But like if I if I did live in that area, I would probably go to that theater because it's a really small little packed in little theater. I'm pretty sure on like a Friday night or something like that. I'm pretty sure it would be nice and fun to go to. But uh, but yeah, I think that the experience taught me a few things. I think that on one level, it's setting your expectations right. I think my ego did dictate a lot of what I thought was going to happen. I thought there would be a Q&A. I thought that there would be more people to talk to. I thought it would be this and that. And really, it was just here's your space. There's the film. It plays. Move along. I feel like I kind of went to a store, and just bought out space. Like that's kind of how it felt like to me, honestly. But also, it's better when you have people there, and when you're just there by yourself, it's harder, especially when you're not promoting your work. Because I wasn't there to promote my work either, just because like I don't feel comfortable doing that. Just like I'd rather just have it there, let it play, rather than having to do all that because also that costs money. Like they having to pay for all that stuff, like promotion and stuff like that. That also costs money. I mean, I could do it on my end for free, but to do it there, it's like fucking damn near $200 just to promote something. It's like no, I'm not gonna waste money like that. So you know, I got an experience though. I like I said, I was able to play it in a theater which is an awesome experience. I mean, you don't get those experiences often, so I'm very grateful for that experience. Um, I just think that there was a lot of just shortcomings that came with my experience, and I think a lot of it is attributed to my own expectations, what I was expecting out of it, and um, I just wish that there was people there that I could talk to that felt more relatable, and felt like we could strike up a conversation about purely that of filmmaking. And I just feel like I didn't really get that, you know. So But you know, it was an experience, and I'm at least grateful for having it, and to also have that journey to go to LA. I never have traveled outside of my parameters ever, so having to travel somewhere 2 hours out, that's a whole new experience for me. So at least I have now that experience of being able to drive. My tailbone, dude, was hurting so bad when I was driving back home. I realized I really need like cushioning for like my butt and my back, because I work in like uh, warehousing, or I work at a FedEx, so I just my back and everything is already tit for tat, and I surf also, so um, so I learned that as well. I definitely need a pillow, and also not to take a toll road, because that pays. You have to pay for that. And I was trying to avoid a toll road, but for some reason I was directed to a toll road when I was driving home, and I didn't know it until I was on it. So, but thank you though to Marina Del Rey for letting my short play. I think that was that's still I'm really grateful for that. And hopefully the festival itself, I hope that they uh, hopefully yeah, hopefully they're having a good time. The guy I saw, I think it was Peter, he just looked tired. He just looked real tired when I was there, so hopefully he had a good time. Hopefully the experience itself, the whole week, was a good one. But yeah, that is my experience with another theater screening. uh, yeah, so if you guys have had experiences like that, let me know. One in a million chance, but if you have a short or whatever and it is playing at that festival, let me know your experience with the festival. Do you guys feel similar, or do you guys have a much different experience? Let me know. Bless me. Bless me again. But let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.